date now is January 2nd, 2013. The time is 7:45 p.m. Gary Ciccarone.
Here.
Rick Charette.
Present.
Steve Wachowski.
Here.
Ed Nason. Jim Freeman.
Here.
Rob Collins.
Here.
Selectman Clifton Camp. Ed Comeau.
Here.
So we only have one board member that's in.
Thank you. Would you be good enough to be Ed Nason tonight?
Sure.
Thank you.
Ed be Ed.
Okay. We're not going to do minutes or any of the other stuff that run with a normal meeting. We're just going to get to work on this business because it's fresh in our minds and it's the time. Now, what it means is we're going to try to remember everything Laura gave us the benefit of and use it accordingly. So we all ought to, as succinctly and with the least amount of craft this new language and see if we can get it done. Let's do it.
Gary, could you tell me that pen? I forgot to bring mine in.
Yeah, sure, I got more than one too. So, that being said.
Point of order. I fully support your focusing the agenda on this one item, although there's somebody here now. I wonder if you wouldn't entertain public comment as well as part of this meeting, in case somebody came here to provide public comment.
Well, let's put it this way. Let's work on this language a little bit, and then we have a selectman sitting here, but he's a private citizen tonight. He resigned his commission for the moment. Let him hear what we're about before public comment. Because he was in there for that, and he didn't hear much of what went on out here, and we're perfectly willing to get input, but let him hear where we are. Otherwise, comments could be about any subject. We're not going there. So, let's get into this. Replacing, all right, home occupations, home-based businesses. Now, does everybody remember the suggestions she made? I'm trying to.
Yes.
Huh?
I have a few writings if you like.
Yes, we need this, George. I know you're on top of it.
One of the suggestions she had suggested adding without site plan review.
That should be part of the first
sentence.
The title block that says home-based business and are defined as such. The way she gave it to us was home-based businesses do not require site plan review and are defined as such. Does anybody have any problem with that? Change it if you want.
No, I think we should put that in.
I think that it was I don't have the exact wording, but the businesses that meet these criteria are not subject to site plan review.
Home-based businesses
Are permitted without site plan review, subject to the
home-based
following
business.
conditions.
Yeah, what Rick just said.
Home-based businesses. I don't think we need home occupations and home-based. Well, we should. They're two different things.
Keep it, man.
That would, if I may add also, Mr. Chairman, that was one of the things she suggested.
Pardon me?
If I may add also, she suggested that home-based businesses or home occupations are defined any way we want to. So you could put a slash there and then define them as the same if you want to in the definitions page from what she was saying.
The only difference I see in it is a home-based business may not be an occupation. It might be some ancillary thing, but a home-based occupation might be what you do all the time.
Keep that first phrase intact. That's
Yeah.
how she said it. Home occupations and home-based businesses are permitted without site plan review,
Right.
subject to the following conditions. That's it. That's all it's changing on that title.
And are designed as such.
We did have in there as defined.
That's all going to go down in
Defined
7.
as a business operated wholly or in part, building or accessory building.
Not on the top. we gotta take that out and incorporate that in 7.
So, I think that her suggestion
title
was
clean.
that,
I thought we were done.
So-
So it was take 7 out and add in a definition.
Modify 7 with this section that George had.
I think the suggestion was to combine the definition, or combine 7 into the definition.
Right.
And then we could either have the definition as a separate paragraph as part of the preamble here, or in the definition section. And that that would be equivalent either way. So,
Let me read
Or
this.
a combination.
Let me read this. And this is where her suggestion was, that we get to the point with a colon or something, and then instead of having everything in a phrase, then we can itemize beneath. Home-based businesses and home occupations are permitted without site plan review, subject to the following conditions, and are designed and are defined as such.
so Gary, I think that if we want to put the definition here, we probably should, like maybe as the first thing, home occupations and home-based businesses are defined as, and then put the definition. And then the next paragraph would be home occupations and home-based businesses are permitted without site plan review, subject to the following conditions.
Okay.
And then list it, right? And otherwise, we have subject to the following conditions defined as, and now the conditions are below the definition.
Anybody have a problem with that?
Yeah, definitions go below it.
Let's,
Why don't,
Or you want like the definition to be the first bullet.
the top sentence, what do we call that? Is that the title? This one, home occupation?
give it to me your way again, Rob, and I'm gonna write it down. Give it to me, and I'll look at the two of them next to each other.
So are you thinking that we would put the definition as the first bullet item under conditions?
Yeah. Or one of those, put it in there somewhere underneath it.
Because the alternative would be that we could just put, not define this inline, we could put like, in parens, see the definitions or whatever, see section whatever for the definition, and put that whole definition, which would include the, 7, as well as the words we added last time, in the definition section.
People find that confusing. They're going back, I mean, we got crap all over this book defining home-based businesses, and it's not good, because they have to look over here, then they find something new over here, and I wrote these things back in 1995 with Dick Peckham, and I still can't figure out where they are half the time. Forget the guy that walks in the door and tries to figure out what the zoning ordinance means. I'm telling you, we should put it all together. It's not that hard to do, and it's really easy to understand when it's sitting there in front of you.
She basically stated that we could do it in several different ways, either do a mild definition and refer to the definitions for something more in-depth, or we could do it more in-depth on this document and even leave it out of the standard definition.
There's nothing in depth here.
She gave us a lot of flexibility with it.
There's nothing in depth here. This is so limited in scope that there's no reason to scatter it throughout the book. We got it all here. Let's work on it. Let's get it done and see what happens. I would like you reverse this a little bit. Could you give it to me? I want to write it down, have the two of them in front of me, then we'll read them back to each other, and we'll come up with a solution that we all agree on. Give me your thing.
Okay, so if we don't want to use the definitions section, right, we want to put it in line here, then I think we have,
Dictate.
I don't have all the words in front of me, but.
We'll make them up.
Okay, so I think there's two options would be, the first, I'll call it option A, would be home occupations and home-based businesses are defined as, and then we'd figure out what definition we want. And then the next paragraph would be home occupations, do you want me to go too fast?
I don't do shorthand. Are defined as, and then we write the definition.
Right.
All right.
And so we've got the first block of text is essentially the definition. And then we go and say home occupations and home-based businesses are permitted without site plan review, subject to the following conditions. And then we've got items 1 through whatever below that. That other option B would be.
Hold on.
Okay.
Review without site plan review and
subject to the following conditions. So it's basically what this first sentence read previously, except with the site plan review clause put in there instead of the definition. So essentially, we've got basically the first paragraph would start with home occupations and home-based businesses are defined as, and the second paragraph would be they're not subject to site plan review, subject to the following conditions, and then that would lead into this list that we've got.
Okay.
Or however we modify it. The other option would be to say that start out with sort of that second piece, and then put in, like, in place of item 1, or I'm sorry, before item 1, item 0 would be the definition, right? You'd say, so, you know, it would be a little bit weird. I don't really like it because it's not really a condition, but you'd be basically putting it under the conditions.
Well, that's what I got on number this one. It says home-based businesses and home occupations are permitted without site plan review and are subject to the following conditions. And then you could take an and or an R and move it around. They are defined as such, could be another sentence. I don't know. How do you guys want it? Either way, it's going to work. So let's just get a consensus on it.
Well,
So
Laura suggested that we don't go that way because it's too complicated to fit as a clause in a sentence, was what she said.
Yeah, but as a separate definition.
Her suggestion was it would just be more clear. Not that it would be wrong that way, it'd just be more clear.
Okay, then-
if we broke it out as here, defined as, blah, you know.
So okay, home-based businesses are permitted, home-based businesses and home occupations are permitted without site plan review and are subject to the following conditions.
Right.
Okay, that's one. I've got an item there.
Now we start.
Now, what do we do? Put the conditions there and then get to the definition later, or should we put the definition above that?
That's the question.
It'll go underneath as part of these Roman numeral items. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Bullets.
Let's fit them in those. They're already there. You can change the language in a couple of these to add that.
Yeah, the only it's a subtle problem, but the only problem with that is that you're then the definition really is a definition, not a condition, right? The conditions are sort of putting constraints on, I don't know, the definition. I mean, it's a subtle point, but that would be the only problem I would have with it. Is this, you know.
Well, that's one of the things you mentioned about using as an example.
All right, how about this? How about we go to a home, I'm going to call them HBOs from now on because it's what I've been abbreviating, are defined as, and then get right into number 7. Home occupation, accessory use by the residents of the property shall be secondary to resident. Do number 7 first.
Yeah.
Or we can do permitted without a site plan review and are subject to the following conditions. Do all the conditions first and then define it. We have to, well, wait a minute. Why not just do home-based businesses are permitted without site plan review? Home-based business subject to the following conditions are permitted without site plan review, and that's a sentence all by itself.
Yep.
Then that gets us out of making too many things in a home-based businesses are permitted without site plan review, subject to the following condition. HBOs subject to the following conditions are permitted without site plan review. Then you don't have to list the conditions right immediately under there. They can be anywhere down in there. But then you can go, the definition of home-based business is such, and then get into number 7. How's that sound?
That's how we want to do it. Clean on the top.
Well, normally, when you say following conditions, you expect conditions to follow, not a. I mean, it.
Rob has a very good point.
Well, listed below. Same.
Right. So why wouldn't you just, if you want to? I guess I don't understand what.
I don't care which one's first. Let's just come up with one and get it there.
It seems like if we want to use the term of like no site plan review subject to these conditions, I'd put that right before you want to list the conditions. And if you want to have a definition, either put the definition before that, before that sentence that introduces the conditions, or after all the conditions, or in the definitions section?
I think definitely before the conditions are listed.
Put the definition.
Put the definition.
So we're gonna get number 7 way up
They're
at
gonna
the
be a little bit
top.
more
Is that what we're
descriptive.
doing?
So last time, yes, I think so, and plus the section that we added to the first sentence last time, the wholly or in part, blah, 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 right? Combine that with number 7, and there's a bunch of overlap there, so we're gonna have like, you know, we're just gonna add what's missing from what was in the first sentence from number 7 for the adjacent properties.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's where it goes.
All right,
And put that up and do that first.
all right. Why don't you dictate something? We can go back and fix the words later, but give me something that I can put down on paper, because I'm listening to you. And I want to write it down, because we could say it 800 times and nobody will remember it. Home-based businesses and home occupations.
Okay, so, you ready, George?
Yes, I,
Okay, you ready, Gary?
Yeah?
Okay. Home occupations and home-based businesses are defined as, colon. I'm guessing that we're gonna have a couple bullet points here. Might be, well, we can decide whether we want bullet points or whatever. Maybe there's a colon there, maybe there's not, but, and then, George, you have the wording from last time that we'd added?
yes. Defined as a business located and operated wholly or in part in the dwelling, accessory buildings, or on the property where the owner of the business resides, subject to the following conditions.
So we'd stop before the subject to the following conditions.
Okay, business located wholly or in part. That was my little addition, the wholly part. Does that mean blessed? Wholly or in part. Read that again, George.
As a business located and operated wholly or in part in the dwelling, accessory building.
Part in the dwelling or accessory building. Or accessory building.
Should
Like,
we
comma,
include
dwelling, comma, accessory buildings.
Dwelling, yeah.
Okay, accessory, okay.
Dwelling, comma, accessory buildings, or on the property where the owner of the business resides.
Should we add there the clause about abutting lots
Yes.
at that point? And take it out of the bottom. of the
That's all,
section?
that's all in 7.
All right.
So 7, so it's 7,
You're being redundant.
right, so,
Everything I just said from defined to resides is all in 7.
right, so what
We're
we're
not
going to
gonna
take,
write it again in 7, that's the.
no, we're going to eliminate 7.
Yeah, we're gonna get rid of it, incorporate it up here.
So the piece that's missing from 7 is the idea of an adjacent, you could live on an adjacent lot and run the business on a lot that doesn't
Or
have.
abutting a lot.
Okay, let's figure out how to incorporate that language in here. Business located and operated, wholly or in part, in the dwelling, accessory building, on the property or adjacent lot. Property,
Or a lot abutting the primary residential.
or property abutting. Where the owner of the business resides. I don't think that's adequate.
Yeah, it might not be because,
It doesn't mean the owner has to own that property.
right, and that's why 7 got kind of complicated, is that
Well, let's figure a way
you
to
don't want,
make it.
you don't want to, you want somebody running a business on their next door neighbor's lot.
Right.
Right, that we, one of the things we want to,
Let me look at this for a minute. We'll come up with a way to put that in there.
We could just leave the last section, and be a property owner of record or leasee of a lot abutting the lot where the on-site operations of the home occupation, the home business, home-based occupation be conducted.
New sentence. New sentence. I'm not trying to say it all in one sentence. It's too confusing.
We put it as a question, you know, like we did here. If the occupation is being conducted on a lot abutting the primary residence, and list it that way, it makes sense.
Excuse me.
In reference to that, Mr. Chairman, in reference to that, you asked me previously to say some of the things that Laura said. Yeah, in reference to that, Laura suggested adding the phrase, "on," if we wanted to, "on an adjacent lot which is used in conjunction with your residential property."
Oh, yeah, the in conjunction would make it so that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let me read you what I got here, okay? The business is located and operated wholly or in part in the dwelling, accessory building, or on the property where the owner of the business resides. The home-based business may be located on an adjacent lot used in conjunction with the residential property. That's the way she said it. And really, that's the intent is obvious. I don't think anybody would question that and try to dance around that. Well, she's got a better idea, shoot it at me. I'll read it again. Business is defined as a business located or operated wholly or in part in the dwelling, accessory building, or on the property where the owner of the business resides. The home-based business may be located on an adjacent lot used in conjunction with the residential property. As long as we want to include that with.
So we might try it as one sentence.
Let's go.
So what you said up to the end of your first sentence, where the owner of the business resides, instead of a period, maybe try a comma, or in adjacent lot used in conjunction with the residential property. I don't think that gets, I mean, it's kind of a heavy sentence, but not too heavy.
Or on an adjacent lot used in conjunction with the residential property, fine. The owner of the business resides.
Yeah, maybe there's no comma there, just or, resides
Or on an adjacent lot used in conjunction with the residential property. Yeah, because the inference there is that if it's used in conjunction,
it's not the neighbor's lot.
Yeah.
Right, so.
Shall I do that again? Anybody want to hear it again?
George, do you have it?
Yes, I do. Would you like me to read it?
Yep.
The home occupation and home-based business are defined as a business located and operated wholly or in part in the dwelling, accessory building, or on the property where the owner of the business resides, or on an adjacent lot used in conjunction with the residential property.
That's it. Okay, now where do we go? You'll have to excuse me.
I think we pretty much all.
I'll be back.
So then the next paragraph, then we'd have a break, and then the next, it would read, home occupations and waste businesses are permitted without site plan review, subject to the following conditions.
Actually, you may want to jump from that point up to the top of where 7 is, for a little bit more description on what's being accepted. You know, say, a lot used in conjunction with residential property, home-based occupation, is an accessory to the residents of the property and shall be secondary to their residential use of the property. Continue on from that point back up to the top. So we have the primary definition and then a little bit more description going in thereafter. Because we use a lot of 7 in that definition part. And that would make everything after subject to the following conditions a little bit easier to digest.
So take that first sentence from 7 and make it the last sentence of the definition paragraph?
What we just did, and what we did from definition of wholly or in part, then in conjunction with the primary residence, then jump up to the top here and use a home-based occupation is an accessory use to the residents of the property and shall be secondary to the residential use of the property. Primary owner or operator of home occupation based shall be property owner of record or leasee of the lot for the on-site operations. Continue from there, that gets it a little bit more descriptive after our primary statement or primary definition of home-based occupation.
Are you working on the next piece after?
He's suggesting bringing more of 7 into the definition.
More of 7 into the definition after the lot being used in conjunction with the residential property, going back up to the top and getting a little more descriptive as far as the home-based occupation being secondary to primary residence.
So I think the first sentence, it's really talking about it being secondary and accessory. I don't think that's covered in the definition. I think that would be a good thing to bring in there, for sure. And the second sentence where it starts, our primary owner or operator of any home occupation shall be property owner of record or lessee of the lot. I think that's maybe covered by our definition. It's got a little bit more words, and it talks about lessee and whatever, but
well, remember Laura also suggested eliminating number 1 entirely, unless we're going to include a bed and breakfast. My brain isn't that big. Maybe we can leave bed and breakfast aside for a second. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm just looking at number 7 in terms of which pieces. What George has read back. What of 7 isn't covered by that already? And I think it seems clear to me the first sentence is sort of additional color that could be easily added there. I'm not sure about starting with the second sentence, talking about that you got to live there, because I think we've already covered that. I think more succinctly.
We should probably mention shall be property owner of record or lessee if they're leasing the property and residing there. We should make that a little bit more fun.
Well, then they're the residents of the property, and the first sentence says that.
Yeah, we
a
talked
home
about
occupation or home-based business is an accessory use by the residents of the property, and shall be secondary to their residential use of the property. Why do we have to say it's got to be the resident again? It already says it.
The lessee would be the one.
The resident.
Yeah.
The resident. Doesn't matter if he leases or owns.
Defines it well enough.
Doesn't matter. He's a resident.
Could he be squatting?
Nowadays you don't know.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, why are we blowing up this definition? It was supposed to be short and sweet. And then the conditions define anything else that you wanted to use to clarify the definition. It was just supposed to be one sentence.
So I think that we could leave the first sentence of 7 as 7, right? Just, it is a condition, it has to be secondary, right? It's an accessory use. I think we could either pull it in as another sentence of the definition or leave it as a condition. I think that would go either way.
Yeah, it would work either way. First of all, from everything she said tonight, that the way these things work, if they ever go to court, is they try to assess the intent of the writers, whoever they are. And so the more information you can give them to intent, the more likely the court is going to pick up on it and decide in that way. Because there's nothing cut and dry and there are no guarantees in court. So it doesn't hurt to give them a little bit more of a, whether it's in conditions or not, the fact that it is a secondary use. I mean, she had it exactly right when she said if you were making 100,000 parts because you had a giant machine there, it might be a little bit too commercial. It's not the secondary use. Yeah, I'm living in the trailer in there, but I've got my factory running and it's the resident. I mean, it is the flavor that you're trying to maintain in Brookfield that most of the people want to see maintained and that we really have to pay attention to, right? Let's just try it in there. What do we want to do with this? Conditions are part of the definition. I think conditions might be a good thing.
Okay, if we're going to have it as conditions, I would suggest that on number 7, we keep the first sentence and throw away the rest of it, because I think the rest of it has been covered by the definition.
Well, let's put the subject to the following condition thing in. We didn't do that yet. Remember?
Right.
Oh, I thought I think you were in the bathroom. So.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I must have missed it. Did you?
Well, I think so the first thing we had was the definition that George had read back.
Yeah.
And then we went with, next would be another paragraph or another section, a break, and then the next paragraph would be home occupations and home-based businesses are permitted not subject to site plan review, subject to, what was the, you've got it, George.
Yes. Home occupations and home-based businesses are permitted without site plan review and are subject to the following conditions.
Now, are we going to take one out and exclude bed and breakfast from home-based business and let that stand alone?
No, we're not going to touch that yet.
Entire section, entire number 1. That was one of the questions.
We're not going to touch that yet because that's a whole different thing then.
If we're going to get into bed and breakfast, we should get into it as a category somewhere along the way and put everything with bed and breakfasts together if we're going to address it.
That's another job.
But if we bring it in here, then we open it up as a home occupation and aren't excluding it as a separate entity.
Well, it's going to be, even if it's treated as a separate entity as far as how you're going to regulate it, but it's listed with home occupations, it'll be accepted as that. What else do we want to put in here subject to the following conditions out of all this stuff?
Mr. Chairman.
Adequate off-street parking with safe ingress and egress of vehicles shall be available?
George.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, this is in reference to some of the things that Laura Spector suggested.
Go ahead.
She talked in reference to the bed and breakfast. Should it stay here, she suggested that we add the phrase, the following are examples of non-permitted uses, and then go to page 453 and put some of those in here. And the reason she suggested that was because when you list non-permitted uses in the section that it's in, without the phrase, the following are examples of, when you don't have that in there, she says that can cause problems later on. So she suggested putting right here in the section, adding the phrase, the following are examples of non-permitted uses.
Examples of, yeah. Right. But we're still doing, right now we're still subject to the following conditions, right? Yeah,
so, yes. The question was about bed and breakfast, which is permitted today, and with the condition that you have to live there. It's listed under home occupations. I don't think we make it worse by keeping it here for now. I think maybe next year we attack, actually getting it not be home-based business and put some limits on it.
I understand, but the way this is just read to me is home-based businesses are permitted without site plan review and are subject to the following conditions. It's got nothing to do with bed and breakfast or anything else.
No, the condition is that the manager has to live in the structure used as a bed and breakfast.
Then let's write those things down.
It's already there.
It's number
Or,
one.
no, maybe you're,
That's fine.
Shall live in any structure used as a bed and breakfast.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well,
It's
if
good.
we're eliminating most of number 7, we should probably just take out the used as bed and breakfast there, and the property owner of record, manager, or lessee shall live in any structure,
Mr. Chairman.
or shall live in a structure.
Mr. Chairman.
No, we're not.
Do we want to leave manager in?
They would be operating under the auspices.
Or just lessee?
Under the permission of the owner, so.
Property owner of record or residence would cover it, don't you think? Or residence?
Manager would be an employee. That would be listed as one of the 4 that, yeah.
That changes the scope of the whole thing.
well,
Then maybe the person's not living there. Maybe maybe you live in Wakefield, you got a home over there, you hired a manager, you put it in and you're running it like a hotel. I don't think,
Then it's more of a commercial.
well, our
that's
def-
what the inference is with manager.
our definition says that there's a resident. Right? Somebody has to live there.
The manager has a room.
Okay.
The manager has to live there. He may not own it, he may not be leasing it, but
Why put anything there other than
That-
residence?
right, I think so this is the wording that's in our current zoning. I think we could change this and say, instead of the property owner of record,
Or
manager
resident.
or lessee, we could just take that out, we should say, the resident. The resident shall live in any structure used as a bed and breakfast. It's
Or property owner of record or resident.
nope, just the resident.
Right, the resident, yeah.
Somebody's gonna live there.
Yeah.
They're gonna live in the same building that they're renting rooms in. Which makes it a bed and breakfast, right?
But should we specify bed and breakfast or leave that open for any type of business? That they should have to reside on that property to conduct business?
Well, I think that's already in the definition.
All right,
Somebody has to live there.
I'm gonna call a recess for a minute. Okay, excuse me for a minute.
Thank you.
We have to give a little bit of a 5-minute recess here, or 10-minute recess, whatever. The resident shall live in any structure, no.
So I'm proposing on number 1 to change the wording to read, the resident shall live in any structure used as a bed and breakfast. So removing the words property owners of record, managers, or lessee, replacing those words with the word resident. And that's going to be less consistent with our previous wording, but more consistent with our wording that we got in the definition, the new definition.
Now, what's the other stuff Laura talked about, bed and breakfast, over here?
Excluding it entirely.
No, she was suggesting that we not make it not permitted, but that we get it out of this section.
At another time.
I think at another time. I don't think we want to tackle
There's
this.
another job, put something together for
Yeah.
bed and breakfast, and remove it at that time. But right now, leave it alone, just don't.
Yeah, we're not making
don't
things
waste
worse,
our
right?
time on it. It's not.
No,
it's not
this
breaking anything.
is innocuous anyway. You're just making the resident live in the bed and breakfast.
I think our work tonight is down at 7. Once we get that definition up the top, short and sweet, then we get out and clean up 7.
So I propose on number 7 that we keep the first sentence and eliminate the rest of it. So it would read in whole. Number 7, a home occupation or home-based business is an accessory use by the residents of the property and shall be secondary to the residential use to their residential use of the property.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
What's the rationale between using the word resident and owner occupant?
Because you may be a renter.
Or although a different path, Or I just get somebody to live in the house and say, I'm running a business.
So,
Well, first of all, I don't think you can make a law. I know where you're going here, that you can make a sham thing set up.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't think you can make a law where you discriminate against someone because they don't own property. If they live in a town and Joe Blow next door is a property owner and he's got a business that's identical to your business and you don't own that property, you just rent it from somebody, he's making jam, you're making jelly, I don't think you can discriminate against them because they don't own the property. I don't think so.
Yeah, we're defining that a home-based business as a business that's owned by the resident. So whoever's living there, it has to be their business.
Yeah.
Right, it can't be I'm renting the house to somebody and I'm running my business there. Right, that's not the spirit of what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, you can't allow that. That's not legal according to our.
Or do you think that that's something that we should be allowed?
I just think owner is much more restricted. Owner or leasee is
Or-
much more restricted than resident.
I think we're trying to stick to where we use the word owner only with respect to the business,
Not the property.
not the property. I think that we want to make sure. I mean, we should keep that in mind when we review this. Is that if we talk about owner, it should be owner of the business and resident of the property. Right? We're talking about whoever lives there, whether they own it or not, they can own a business that's run there. I think that would be my intent. I'm not sure if that's.
That's the way I hear it. That's exactly the way I hear it.
Do you think that's reasonable?
It's not as restrictive as being the owner.
Right, owner of the property.
That's right.
Yeah.
I just think it would have an awful hard time in court telling someone they can't make jelly just because they rent the property, they live there. Well, the guy next door who owns the property is making jelly, you know?
Why would you even want to do that?
That's not the point. Nobody would.
Right, okay, good. I didn't think there was a good reason why you wanted to do that.
One thing, reading this over, if you look at 6 and you look at the first sentence of 7, 6 makes the first sentence of 7 redundant.
So you propose getting rid of 7 entirely?
If we've addressed the issue of the adjacent lot in the descriptions, and we have number 6 there, number 7 is entirely unnecessary. We can move 8 up to number 7.
I like it.
Yep, 6, you're right.
Get 7
That's
out of
right
10.
on the money.
7 gone.
I like it.
As long as that adjacent property issue is addressed.
Well, we've got that in the definition, so hopefully.
So that's.
Okay, are we still working on conditions
Yep.
here?
Yes.
Did we ever address adequate off-street parking?
We have not talked about that.
Well, that was the next one down. Are we gonna skip all the way down to the 6 and then go back to that one later? How are we gonna do it? Huh?
We could address it however we like. I think that's.
Well, it's up there at the top, so we can,
Let's go to number 2.
number 2. I think that we have to leave that there anyway. Safety is an issue.
Absolutely.
And I'd leave it alone, just like itself.
2 looks good, just the way it is.
It leaves it a little descriptive or, for the governing body at the time. Like, let's say, like you were mentioning.
Because the word adequate.
The sitting board, when somebody's applying, may have a different idea of what adequate is than a sitting board 5-10 years down the road, as you described.
Well, I think automatically when you say the word adequate, off-street parking means that you can't be parking on the street. And if you're parking on the street, short of tag sales and the like, if you're parking on the street and and Laura intimated that when she sat there, she shook her head when we said on-street parking is not adequate parking. Anybody can interpret any way they want, but if you're off the street, you're off the street. I don't care how many spaces there are, as long as there aren't too many spaces so that somebody had to go on the street. I think the most important thing is safe ingress and egress is the most important thing. That if you got a corner, like down here, do you remember that? On the corner there, the farm right around the sharp bend there, the memory.
Sweet memories.
Sweet memories.
I wasn't here at that.
No, but that was pretty tough spot, right on that sharp corner down here. You know, they had a driveway coming out on the corner. Tough spot.
Who gave him that driveway permit?
I don't know, 1945, they didn't have driveway permit.
Was that right next to tolls?
That's like
Yeah.
before the road was paved.
Cross from Tolls, right on the corner.
Oh,
That sharp corner, there was.
inside corner.
Yeah, it's-
So one thing to point out about number 2 is it doesn't say that the parking, off-street parking has to be used. It
Nope.
just has to be available. You
Yep.
can't force your customers. This ordinance doesn't force the business owner to force their customers to use the parking,
But it doesn't say if you're.
but it has to be there and
It doesn't
available.
say if you're doing widgets, if you need 2, 4, 8, 50.
It has to be adequate.
It's
Yeah,
up to
that's
the
what I'm
discretion
saying.
of the,
Yeah, that's where it comes to discretion of the governing board, which would be the selectmen.
It's a lawsuit.
Huh?
That's a lawsuit. That's a
That's
lawsuit.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but you always can refer to the police department.
Oh, you get sued on something like that because it's a judgment call.
Mm.
Well, what you do is you refer it to the PD. And they're the ones that make the traffic.
The only way to completely avoid lawsuits is to not allow anything.
Well, say no parking on the street. That's clear. Can't park in the street.
Could word it that way.
as long as you're on the other side of the white line.
That's fine.
But there's already laws that say you can't block the street, separate from whether or not it can be a home-based business, right? All we're trying to say here is that the owner of the business has to make sure that there's enough parking there. And if there's not enough parking, the selectman can say you need to make more parking or be shut down, cease and desist, right? If the reason that people are parking on the street is because there's nowhere else to park, then there's not adequate parking available.
Yeah. And that's
If
with
they're
the
too
exception-
lazy to pull into the driveway,
Yeah, that's with the exception of
But-
I just had tag sale, you have one special event.
that's not anybody's fault.
Well, the police can start ticketing the customers.
That's right.
Not the
That's what
business
they're there
owner.
for.
The business owner's done what they can, right?
Yep.
They're providing parking. And if they're unlucky enough to have their driveway on an unsafe corner,
It's a problem.
then they can't have the business there or somehow have to mitigate that
Yep.
safety issue.
That's exactly the way it has to be. Yeah.
Well, can't you just get rid of the adequate and just say off-street parking must be provided?
I don't
Or
think
is
so,
that too
because
strict?
if it were me, I'd be like, I only have room for one space, I'm gonna provide one space of off-street parking. And I've met the off-street parking with safe ingress and egresses must be available. I've got it available, it's one spot. I have 10 customers at the same time, but I met the letter of the law. That's where the adequate comes in, is like, you stop people from being, jerks and saying.
You put it in the hands of somebody who's looking at it from the outside in.
Laura didn't see any problem with that, so I think we're debating something that's a non sequitur. Anyway,
Trying to be devil's advocate.
I don't think she looked at that and she had no comments about that. She's looking. She says, "This looks fine to me." So I don't think we should argue this to death.
Is on-street parking illegal in this town?
No,
Just ask.
it's not illegal. It just depends on how far into the traffic lane you are. You have to check with the PD. You can't park on a state highway. You can't obstruct traffic. Read the RSA's. I don't know.
Okay, no parking on state highways.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. And
All right, I'll
also-
read the RSA.
Yeah,
Also,
I don't know.
I don't know if it's appropriate for me to say it, but Ms. Laura Spector also suggested adding, quote, X number of vehicles in relation to business are not required to be screened.
I was going to go there.
Yeah, I think that's number 3.
No, that's another contingency here.
But 2 is fair.
So we're gonna leave 2 as is? Is that the consensus?
I would leave 2 just as it
Yes.
is. I see nothing to change there. We could debate it forever and come up with the same thing.
Okay, so on number 3, I think we've got the suggestion from Laura that we explicitly allow some number of
Vehicles.
like
Occupational.
occupational vehicles,
Okay.
and everything else maybe has to be screened.
Why don't we leave it just what it says here, external storage of occupational equipment and supplies shall be screened from the view of abutters in the right of way. No more than 2 vehicles, or whatever number. Because operational equipment doesn't necessarily mean vehicles. It could be anything.
Well, we should also specify registered.
Pardon me?
We should specify registered.
That's elsewhere in our zoning. We've got that in our zoning already. It's got nothing to do with home-based businesses. They have to be registered. Our zoning has that in there. You can't park cars you can't stack them up. So I don't think we need to readdress that here. External storage of occupational equipment and supplies shall be screened from the view of abutters in the right of way.
With exception of.
With the exception, or you can just put no more than 2 vehicles displaying advertising shall be parked in public view. I mean, do we want it 2, 3? I don't know. How does everybody feel? I think a couple should be enough.
3 or 4 would be more than adequate for operations.
3 or 4 is like,
Does anybody in town have that many?
yeah, I mean,
I'm just saying, I said, you might have somebody that has a 3rd vehicle that's used.
You know, it's,
are they all gonna have signs on them? I mean, that's
Yeah,
the
exactly,
point.
yeah.
Does somebody have 3 work vans? What's the deal?
They may have themselves, their son, have a spare van that they use.
They'll have to screen the 3rd one. What do we wanna make it? Let's
I
pick a
would say
number.
4, since 4 is the limit of the employees you can have, so.
what's wrong with somebody having their business name written on that vehicle?
Nothing. But they just can't have a fleet of 20. So we're gonna pick a number.
This, I
It
think,
would be
I think this
considered,
would exclude the employees.
considered occupational
I'm just trying to
equipment,
come up with
that's
a
the law we're saying. A vehicle that's used for your occupation is occupational equipment, and if it has to be screened, how many can you park in plain view to the right of way?
Does anyone have more than 2 in town?
Well, you should get some.
I don't know what the deal is. We're just, she suggested that we allow it. Otherwise,
Well,
this thing would then make everybody screen all of their vehicles.
Yeah.
And we don't want to do that. So we want to pick a reasonable number that people in the
Well,
town aren't going to get freaked out.
Well,
Oh, 50 trailers? We're not going to allow
I'm
that.
looking for the number to be, the number above what's already in town right now. Does anyone have 2 or 3 or 4?
Well,
Mike
well,
McLaughlin had 3.
Yeah, and he could have a trailer that looks perfectly nice and neat, but
What's
has a
a
name
vehicle?
on the side of it. So 4 would be a reasonable number, as long as they're parked off street.
Mike had 3 if that was the most. I think,
He spent $7,000 on legal fees to keep those 3 trucks in his driveway.
Sonric has got 2.
Yep.
You got 1?
He won too, by the way.
I could have 2. All I have to do is put my sign on my wife's car.
Oh,
That
here
makes
we
2.
go.
But if you have a trailer, that would be
Yeah.
not registered.
So,
I think-
You know, it's so, it's.
I don't think it
such a
should be
flexible
trailers.
number.
I think trailers should be left alone.
Trailers aren't vehicles.
They're not vehicles. We're gonna give them a number of vehicles.
So trailers have to be screened?
Well,
Well,
there
somebody
again,
spent a lot of
it's,
money to keep 3 there, so there's your number.
we could argue that point. Well, trailers are equipment.
Trailers are also registered roadworthy.
Are trailers a registered vehicle? Yeah, I
They
think.
are registered, trailers are registered almost.
Yeah,
Try to take it on the road.
it's a registered vehicle.
I'm tempted to leave it alone. I mean, you got all those vehicles, you got that many employees, and 4's the max. The 4
I think the
limits the other thing.
The issue is that I think you don't want necessarily to have, 4 excavators, 4 bulldozers, 4, trailers to carry them on, right, all in somebody's front yard.
That's occupational equipment.
Right.
Right. So I think that there is a reason, I think it's not unreasonable to say that we're going to put some limit on how much unscreened occupational equipment we've got.
Exception of no more than.
We've already got that in there.
4
Let me find it.
unscreened vehicles.
We have an ordinance in here that says equipment has to be screened. I gotta find it.
It's in the section we're replacing. It's,
Yeah.
External storage of occupational equipment and
Supplies
supplies.
will be screened from view either by fencing or dense vegetation.
So it's basically what, number 3, without any
It's
exceptions.
already
or
there.
restrictions. Right, so,
So leave it.
well,
So-
I think what we're saying is that it's overly restrictive to say that every occupational vehicle, every single one has to be screened, which is what our current zoning says.
Well, that's why I'm saying, let's make a number of vehicles that have display company names or logos or something like that are allowed. People do it. They park, I have my truck, it's parked in my garage, nobody gives a hoot in my driveway.
I would say that it doesn't really matter whether it has a logo or not, right? It's like, you know,
Okay, but you're right.
okay, just to get specific.
Tails 3, tails 4.
I recommend the following wording change to number 3. At the beginning of the sentence, put the words, with the exception of, I'll just make a number 2, vehicles, comma, external storage of occupational equipment and supplies shall be screened from the view of butters in the right of way. And we can argue about whether it should be 2, 3, 4, 10, whatever.
I don't think the word vehicles is adequate. You can have 45 vehicles in your yard if you want, as long as they're all registered. Ron Murray had
Yeah.
20 in his yard and they were all registered.
But anything over the 3, 4, or whatever has to be screened from.
No, we have,
This is
It
the,
has a sign.
registered vehicles do not have to be screened in this town if they're registered.
But-
That's the, what we
Yeah,
get,
so
the
we're
rest
talking
are.
about home-based businesses, right? So it'd be, so that we, so
If they don't display a logo, they're just registered vehicles and they're already permitted. If they display a logo, they become advertisement and signage, and that's the issue here.
There's still a vehicle.
If you've got 10 backhoes and they're all registered, then.
That's equipment. That's equipment, that's not a
Well,
vehicle.
this similar thing was happening in Milton, where everybody was parking their company vehicles on the side of the road, and it became obstructive.
It's not legal here anyway.
Well, I'm just saying, but they were registered vehicles, they had the signs on the side of it, because there was a sign ordinance, so they started parking all their vehicles right on the edge of the road.
I don't want-
Technically off the road, but that's
I don't
became
want to tell
quite
anybody how
an
many
issue.
vehicles they have. If
Me either.
there's vehicles with advertising, if it gets excessive, it'll come under the equipment and you can take action. Tell them, to screen them, move them. Well, I don't want to tell anyone how many vehicles they can have with advertising on them.
I think they should have as many as they want, just that we're gonna say a maximum number that they can have on their property unscreened.
Not without signs on them, because there's people in this town that have 7 vehicles on their property.
Are they related to a home business?
How do you know what's related to home business? You see vehicles sitting there? I use one
Just a
vehicle
vehicle.
every other day, and I part of it's maybe my home business, maybe not. I could have 45 vehicles on my property legally, and I might drive all 45 of them every other day, and I might use them as part of my home business. And are you gonna come and say to me that those are your home business vehicles, you have to screen 42 of them? Impossible.
This is what
If they don't display advertising, we shouldn't even be concerned with the vehicle as long as it's registered. If it's part of the owners, if you can't regulate the client.
If I wanna drive my tractor on the road after
I
registering.
don't want to be in business of telling people how to paint their trucks and their cars, or how many they should have. And all
But
that.
that's the exact point with the butters, and we all know butters can be quite a pain. Too many vehicles with happy firewood on the side, just devil's advocate on that.
No, that's different.
That's your equipment.
I'm not
and it's
arguing
supposed to
the
be
point
screened.
about happy,
Yeah, I mean-
I'm saying logo. Look,
If you wanna line your Ferraris up front, I mean, fine, go ahead.
They got
we
logos on
cannot
them.
limit the number of vehicles people have on their property that are registered unless you specify specific things like they have signage on them. Because this guy who doesn't have a home business could have 47 vehicles there legally. So how are you gonna go to the guy who has a home business and say, you can't have 47 vehicles there, even though the guy down the street has 47 vehicles? You can't do it.
You can't tell people how to paint vehicles either.
Yeah.
But you can certainly tell them that if you paint your vehicles for advertising, because it's considered signage then, you can't have more than 3 of them. And you could wind up with 1,000 square feet of signage in your front yard if you bought yourself a box truck and registered it and painted
Exactly.
Joe's
Exactly.
subs on it, and you were making submarine sandwiches in it. I mean, you could do it. That was Mike's issue. They went after Mike because he had 3 trucks up there. One of them was his big bucket truck, another one was his van that he carried all his electric equipment. He was doing commercial work. And he had McLaughlin Electric paint on all 3 of them. And they went after him for it. Because of our very ordinances here, that equipment thing, it was the Martins went after him. And it wound up costing Mike over $7,500 to fight it, but he won. It cost the town 12 grand by the time it got done.
But how do we save somebody that type of distress? I mean, he shouldn't have to pay $7,000 for having just 3 vehicles parked out there.
By saying you can have these things there.
Yeah, but we should mention it in
What's the
here.
value
What-
of
what I just
12
said.
grand if they can remove them?
Then we should mark that registered on-road vehicles are not considered equipment. We should put that there to save Mike or the next Mike.
We already have that in here. That you can park, that all, you can park as many vehicles as you want as long as they're registered. It's in our
That's right.
zoning ordinance in different places.
So let's leave it alone.
So let's leave number 3 the way it is. It reads, external storage of occupational equipment and supplies shall be screened from the view of abutters and the right of way. I propose we leave it as is.
I love it.
If we have someone that,
Now, what happens if the abutter next door says they don't like that truck that's being used as an occupational vehicle is not screened? Are we forcing them to screen their vehicle?
They'll have to go see the selectmen.
You know what I'm saying?
but then you leave it up to interpretation.
So what? That's how it's set up.
Laura!
There's the winds of the political change.
Right.
And that's, yeah, but that's the thing.
The only ones that people have
Somebody
any
could be
business
allowed
getting
because
pissed
he's your
off
buddy,
over
but-
are the ones that have
But
signage
you
on.
can't do that.
That's right.
That's what I was
That's the
talking
problem.
about.
We gotta protect people from that type of discrimination.
Do you want to address signage or just leave it alone?
You can,
Technically,
Address
under
it
this,
with
we
your
can
ballot.
say, you got a home-based business and we want all your vehicles
But for those
screened. because
your
they're
that's your
operational
operations
request.
equipment.
Your
We
request
get, can
is
be
to
done. If somebody wants to be unreasonable, it can be done.
That's where you run into problems and lawsuits,
Hopefully.
right there. That'll be-
Recourse
that's
is
done.
valid.
Okay, what are we gonna do with that one? Leave it alone?
I'm leaving it alone.
Personal rights.
We're gonna leave it alone and let
Yeah.
the future generations worry about the signed vehicles?
Let our grandchildren worry about it.
All right, done. They're gonna worry about everything else
Hey,
anyway.
you should be in Washington.
They're gonna have Obama
They're
trying
gonna
to worry
have pay
about.
off, so let them figure this out.
So by leaving number 3 the way it is, we're leaving it consistent with our current zoning. We're not fixing any problems, we're not creating any problems.
That's right.
We're just reorganizing our problems.
Yep,
Congratulations.
that's what we're doing. Does anybody have any constructive thoughts on this?
Sounds like we've got a consensus on number 3, we're gonna just.
Then let's move on.
I propose that we leave number 4 the way it is.
Yep. That drew 50 people. We tried to change it, and it drew 50 people out one time. Huh?
What's number 4 say?
The number
Of
of
persons
persons.
engaged in the on-site operation of any one or combination of home occupations, home-based business shall not be more than 4, excluding the residents. We tried to make it not more than 4 at any one time, last time we addressed this. Which means that if you had a bed and breakfast, you had 4 people working in the morning and 4 people working in the evening. Town went ballistic.
So let's leave it. Number 5.
Yeah, we're leaving it alone. They'll go ballistic again, believe me. Leave 5 alone.
Agreed.
And we're leaving 6 alone.
And that's going to take care of
And we're
eliminating.
moving 8 up to 7.
And 7, I think we
We've eliminated.
should eliminate entirely.
Yeah, because we've said it elsewhere.
Yeah. Wow, look at that.
8
Number-
versus 7.
There's number 8 is just moving the same restriction we have from general provisions into this section. I propose that we, after the list of conditions, that we,
We've got something on the back.
yeah, that's,
Number 2.
yeah, that's dealing with the deleting from where signs are now. But the other thing Laura suggested was that we move our non-permitted
Right.
home occupations into this. So I propose that we would add, so we've got number 1, which is replace Article 2, districts, blah, blah, blah. We've got number 2, which is delete the following from Article 3. I suggest we leave that number 2 the way it is, right? Because number 8 captures the sign, the
Yep.
6 square feet of sign.
Yeah.
Right, number 2 deletes that from general provisions, the sign part of it. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm suggesting adding a number,
If you're adding, it'd be now number.
so I guess I'm suggesting 2 things. One is to add,
Number,
below the conditions, we're gonna add some non-permitted uses. And then we have a number 3, which is gonna delete the non-permitted uses from the existing zone. Right, repeal the stuff that's on page 4 of 53,
right.
and we're gonna be adding it as part of,
The way she said to do it was, some of the things that are non-permitted, such as, some things are non-permitted, examples of which would be, this is so we have the flavor of what is not permitted as opposed to actually creating a list of non-permitted things. So you'd be in a much stronger position. Okay? So some of the things,
George, did you have the wording for that?
Yes, I do.
Actually, I believe that she said that we can remove the others as a housekeeping measure later, that we didn't have to include it on the warrant.
She has here, quote, "The following are examples of non-permitted uses."
She was mentioning not to put too much into the warrant and make it confusing, that we can take care of that as a housekeeping item later, if it's already mentioned in this and this is accepted.
animal hospitals and boarding kennels, automobile service or filling stations,
Sales or repair facilities. So from non-permitted uses as it exists today, the A, B, and C, I think
yeah.
so we've got our definition, we've got our no site plan review for the following conditions, and then we've got sort of the next piece would be the following are examples of non-permitted uses. Have A, B, and C there, although I guess from a numbering perspective, they'd be Roman numerals, 1, 2, and 3, rather than A, B, and C. But
Well, we can use them as commas so we don't have to bill it the non-permitted uses. Use it as a comma, then it's not as definitive. Animal hospitals, comma, auto repair.
I wonder who wrote this boarding house convalescent home?
I see is a long list of things. I don't think it would be good to get all 3 of those into one sentence. I think it helps to have them broken up.
Well,
Jim is suggesting that we put animal hospitals, comma, boarding kennels, comma, automobile or filling stations, comma, sales, automobiles.
Instead of building each one individually, making it more general and using a comma to separate.
I think we've already made it fairly general by saying these are examples. I don't know.
That's already in there, all right.
are we going to leave boarding house, convalescent home, dormitory, fraternity, or sorority? Whoever wrote that in? There isn't a college within 30 miles of the place.
Well, we put boarding houses and that could be.
Well, so I'm talking about fraternity or sorority houses.
But as an example, boarding
just
house would be
comical, that's
similar to that and be similar in
You
intent.
see the UNH kids commuting to Brookfield? I can't. Boarding
That was in the
house.
suburbs of Durham.
If we're going to leave the boarding house convalescent home, we should leave A, B, and C. I
Yeah,
think.
I would take them as they are. It makes it more clear that we're not changing.
Yeah.
That it is just housekeeping.
Yeah. People won't get bent out of shape.
Less bending out of shape is better. So George, you understand what the proposal is?
Yes, so I'm gonna take A, B, and C here at number 2, move them over to the phrase, the following are examples of, yeah, I'm the one who said it, Are examples
Non-permitted.
non-permitted uses, yes. And then A, animals, hospitals, and boarding kennels. B, automobile service or filling stations, etc. C, and then and that's it. And then I won't add D and E, is that correct?
That's right, and then we'll remove A, B, and C from where they are now. So there'd be like a number 3 that would say delete the following from Article, whatever this is, 2 districts, blah, 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 number 2, remove A, B, and C.
Now, we're also going to leave number 2, non-permitted uses. But it's not going to fall under home-based business. Where are we going to put number D? D has to move, but we want to keep it, the funnel development.
I think D we'd have to do that. She said that we'd want to do that as a separate warrant article.
No, put it under number 3, yes, but where are we going to locate it? It would be located under building lot requirements. That was what she said.
Yeah, we would, so.
Restriction on funnel development. No permanent or temporary rights given any lot, tract, or parcel of land with frontage on Lake Pond shall be granted for, I don't have to read anymore.
Yeah, I think we put it as item G under.
Item G.
3.
That's right. You get that, George?
I think that should be a separate warrant article, a separate working document,
Yes.
a separate warrant article. But I think we can, that's easy enough to.
That is a second work. You got it?
I believe so. So you want 2D to be moved under to 3G, is that right?
That's correct. And that'll be a separate working document anyway. It's not going to be a different warrant article.
And that has to do with,
Restriction on funnel development.
It's
To
not-
stop from the lake, from people having one beach. Yeah.
I just didn't know what the discussion was about.
It's just it's under non-permitted uses now, which Laura says is the wrong place for it. It should be under
It shouldn't be under home-based businesses. Somehow it's there. That's what I mean. We got stuff all over the place here.
Now I understand the discussion. Move it, right, I understand.
So I think E, which says any other use not consistent with A1, is just stupid.
Yeah, it really is.
And we should just eliminate it, because it has no meaning, right?
It has no meaning at all.
It's redundant to the law, and also whatever's not permitted is prohibited. This is basically saying the same thing. So.
Excuse me. Okay. What else did she bring up tonight that we want to do?
We have to vote to continue?
No, we're gonna call the meeting.
So our rules are that we need to vote to bring up any new business after 9 o'clock. So if we're still working on a topic, we don't need to have a vote.
Okay.
Yeah,
But we can't
correct.
we can't go to a new topic after 9 without agreeing to it.
Okay, can I say something here? We come a long way here. We really got a whole lot of this figured out. Let's call it tonight. We're all here for the hearings on Monday. And I think we're going to have quite an issue, not on the FEMA thing, but certainly on the other thing. But I could be wrong. But I don't think I am. We'll see. But after the hearing, and the hearing's not going to go to 9 o'clock, no matter how crazy things get at hearings, they don't run that late.
That's just on FEMA?
No, it's on the beach.
Oh, okay.
You know, the people may turn out. I mean, nobody knows what's going to happen. It's been published. We have to, technically, we have to recommend or not recommend this as a planning board, this ordinance that, what's his name, Robbins has written. And we're supposed to base that on what the results of the hearing is.
Okay.
If 100 people come for it and 100 people are against it, then I don't know. We'll have to debate it as a board. But if there's 10 for and 1,000 against, obviously we represent the people we're elected, you know. So that's what we're all about, and that's all we're about. We have no other thing until site plan review if he gets it passed, then we're done.
So we're not looking at the feasibility of it, that it somehow can happen. It's
No,
just-
it's the people vote on it.
Well,
It could get challenged in court, that we don't know what's gonna happen. If he goes to develop, he comes before this board, whoever's running it at the time for site plan review, and they gotta deal with it. But we don't have to get involved and waste time on it. I say we take this working document, go over it in front of ourselves after the hearing, and then we can get on with the rest, putting this in front of the,
Okay.
on Monday.
So George, do you think you can have a clean copy for us by Monday?
Mr. Chairman, may I suggest we have a motion?
Shall I make the motion?
I move that we adopt the changes that we discussed as amendments to the working document.
Second.
Any more discussion? Hearing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Opposed? Absent? The ayes have it, let's do it. Okay, the 7th we can talk about, I don't think it'll take that long, I don't think we have to argue any of the points anymore.
So the 7th is only a couple days away. Does George have time to?
I'm asking him.
Well, if you can get it in, if you get an email.
To make this happen? is what
Yeah.
you're saying? I will make it the time.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the change to move restriction on fundal development as a working document, as discussed.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor? Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Move it. Done.
Mr. Chairman, do you want a motion for, how do you want to handle item E, any other use not consistent with A1?
We're doing this Monday. After
Should we do that as part of the,
I assume, I have on my notes that was talked about as far as deleted, and I assume that was part of your last motion.
okay, so that'll be part of the bookkeeping on the
Yeah.
funnel development.
I
Okay.
think that piece of housekeeping there, I don't know if that has to be voted on or not.
Why don't we just treat it as part of the funnel development?
Yeah, let's go.
I think that's fine. That's
See, it
fine.
works, it's done.
Okay.
Okay, anything else anybody got before we, public comments?
I have a question on.
You've been commenting all along anyway, but,
Public comment is, when I'm not here, I look at the tape, okay? I think it's good when the people that are on the board are sitting at the table, so you can see them in the picture and see what's going on. So I'm assuming that you five or you four, I don't know who's sitting tonight.
oh, because Steve and Jim are out
Then I
there.
would ask you to sit at the table, if you were gonna be sitting, so when you look at the video, you know who's sitting on the board.
Good point.
Can we get the selectmen to buy us a bigger table?
Yeah.
More
I
chairs.
made this table. I'm not making a bigger one. I refuse to build a bigger table.
Robert's, or Chuck's property, what's it zoned for now?
Residential agriculture.
Yep.
It's already one.
As it in current use?
I don't know.
Yes.
It is?
Yes.
Well, he's gonna have to pay a chunk of money to do it, take it out of that.
Well, I'm just curious, because I know a little bit of the background out of it, not all, you know, I'm not up to date on it.
It only depends on how much he pulls out of current use too. He might not have to pull much out to do what he wants to do.
Knowing, dealing with him in the last 10, 15 years, he's got something up his sleeve.
Oh, yeah. It's a given.
So he's got something figured out.
Oh, sure he does. You don't think he's already got the state ready to go? And he's got an attorney involved, or two? You bet.
We adjourn the meeting?
Depends on what the town people say, that's what it's gonna amount to. We'll see. Monday night next week should be a pretty interesting night.
Have we adjourned?
Who's the meeting adjourned?
Meeting is adjourned. We'll see everybody Monday night for the hearing.
The whole